In this walkthrough video, we'll be taking a look at the new features in this latest update of Logic Pro. A massive new update, probably the biggest one since Logic Pro 10 was initially released back in 2013. Current Logic Pro users will be pleased to know this is another free update. Whilst for newcomers thinking of trying Logic Pro, now's a good time to get stuck in, as currently they're offering a 90-day free trial. Version 10.5 introduces many new features, enhancing workflows for sampling, beat making and more, with a firm emphasis placed on creativity and getting results quickly, whilst expanding the focus of Logic Pro for electronic music production. Live loops is probably the biggest workflow change we've seen in Logic Pro, as the way you kickstart new ideas now will be completely transformed. Users of GarageBand for iOS will be familiar with live loops, but this is way more advanced. Essentially a sketchpad for new ideas, Live Loops has been designed to help you create and write music in a much more improvised fashion. You can arrange and perform your loops, samples or MIDI within the Live Loops grid, jam out sections of your track and experiment with different arrangement ideas. At its simplest, you can start and stop playback of Live Loop cells in real time, though control does go much deeper than this when you access some of the more under the hood features. And you can also record MIDI directly into a Live Loop cell. A column of cells becomes a scene, which you can think of like a section of your track. Triggering different scenes will play back the series of cells within the column. This presents a great way to build up ideas for arrangements and find complementary sounds. In order to record a Live Loops performance into the tracks area, you simply enable the Record Performance button and hit record. Using the Show Hide Tracks Area button will reveal your Live Loops performance being recorded on the timeline. People will of course draw comparisons here to Ableton Live, but I think what makes this workflow unique is the fact that Live Loops lives right inside Logic Pro. So you're able to play back different tracks in both the Tracks area and Live Loops area simultaneously. This can be done via the Track Activation button. Many Logic Pro users will have been waiting a long time for this, a modern redesign of the EXS24, simply titled Sampler. Sampler still saves using the EXS file format and continues to load all existing EXS instruments. By automating this sample loading process via optimized import options, you can very quickly create a multi-sample instrument via drag and drop. The sound design with this instrument can go really deep. Sampler boasts a powerful modulation system with a series of LFOs and envelopes, as well as synthesizer type processing, including the lovely sounding filters that have been brought in from the Alchemy synth. You also now have Quick Sampler, a brand new Logic plugin designed for working with individual sounds. Again, you have optimized import options, where intelligent analysis of the audio will automatically search for loop points, crop silence and optimize loudness. You can also flex audio samples in both Sampler and Quick Sampler, which makes them great for getting creative, triggering back and matching up loops. A series of different playback modes are on offer for working with drums, one-shots or musical content. You can record audio directly into Quick Sampler, as well as access the Slice playback mode, providing the option to slice samples straight into a drum machine designer track. Or you can drag and drop a MIDI region of your slices directly into your project. The drag and drop workflow of these samplers even extends to the Tracks area too. Dragging and dropping either a single sample or multiple samples directly into the track header area, you can instantly create a sampler or Quick Sampler instrument for your audio files. Workflow is clearly at the heart of this 10.5 update, evidenced further by the inclusion of a new step sequencer. Activated by creating a pattern region in the Tracks area, pattern cell in the Live Loops area, or available as another MIDI editor, an alternative to the piano roll editor, but optimized for working with beats. You can use it to very quickly sequence drums, one-shots and melodies. Steps can be turned on to quickly build up your pattern, which can be extended up to 64 steps. You can use the pattern step rate to change playback speed, or alter the playback mode. These controls also function on a per row basis. For example, you could change the pattern step rate for the clap from 16th notes to 8th notes, whilst changing the playback mode for the hi-hats to have them play back in the sequencer in reverse. The edit mode selector provides further sequencer editing controls such as velocity, loop start and end, and note repeat. Great for controlling dynamics, changing the sequence order, and creating drum fills and rolls. These edit modes also extend to individual rows. This can be done by clicking the row disclosure triangle and clicking the plus icon to bring up extra lanes. By selecting chance, we can control the probability that the step plays back each time the pattern repeats. I also found this sequencer really great for generating melodic sequences. There's a series of pattern presets you can call up and edit, as well as loading up one of the pattern templates. By snapping all notes in the sequencer to your project key, you can efficiently begin to build up quite involved and complex musical phrases. And you're also able to add automation via the step sequencer. A great way to get really creative and add dynamics to musical phrases and drum loops. There are also improvements to Logic's Drum Machine Designer, integrating it nicely with some of the new features we've been discussing. Now built on Quick Sampler, the workflow for dragging a set of samples into the tracks area to create a Drum Machine Designer instrument is extremely fluid. Once done, each sample is automatically assigned to a pad within the designer. The pads are like containers. With Quick Sampler pads, you have access to all the sample editing controls. However, the pads will house any plugin too, including third-party instruments and effects. You can also layer multiple sounds to be triggered by the same pad. For example, these kick and kick top samples are both being triggered by the same key, even though they're on different pads. Let's now go ahead and load up a custom kit I created using Logic Pro's new drum synths. The drum synths are a set of drum synthesizers based on classic and modern drum machine sounds, including a series of kicks, snares and claps, percussion and hats and cymbals. Each one loads with a submenu for different vibes and tonal variations, along with a set of controls for further sonic sculpting. All of these drum synths are really clean and crisp sounding, and when combined with the Drum Machine Designer and Step Sequencer in Logic Pro, makes groove creation incredibly fun. Once I'd spent some time with each of these new features, I realised the integration of them all provide a completely fresh workflow for musical creation in Logic Pro. For example, creating these variations of drum patterns, created with a series of drum synths, housed in the Drum Machine Designer and being triggered by the Step Sequencer. I've created variations of each drum pattern as cells in the live loops grid and began to experiment with different scenes to figure out what sounds and elements are working well together. Essentially, the fundamentals of my arrangement are being sketched out in real time. DJ style effects can now be applied in Logic Pro via the new Remix Effects plugin. A series of powerful effects can be controlled via XY pads and sliders. Though the interaction with this plugin is definitely enhanced when being controlled by the Logic Remote app. Any one of 6 different effects can be loaded into either slot at a time, allowing for multi-touch control. There's also reverse playback, tape stop and vinyl style scratch effects. If you're not familiar with Logic Remote, it's definitely worth checking it out to see how it integrates with some of these new features. It's a free app for iPhone and iPad, and it's great fun for not only controlling the remix effects, but also when performing live loops, mixing, accessing key commands, playing instruments and more. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is a considerable new update. There's plenty of new features we didn't get time to cover in this walkthrough. However, we've put together a 2-hour course that looks at all these new features in much more detail. And if you're new to Logic, it's definitely worth checking out the 90-day free trial so you can follow along with all ADSR content.